Husband pushed wife overboard, but she rose like a star. The ocean swallowed her whole. Tasha Patterson hit the water back first, and the cold knocked every bit of air from her lungs. The Pacific did not care that she was wearing a silk blue dress or that it was her 7th wedding anniversary. It did not care that 30 seconds ago she had been holding a glass of champagne and smiling at the man she loved. The ocean only knew how to pull things down, and it pulled her fast. She sank. The salt burned her eyes and filled her nose. Above her, the surface of the water shimmered like broken glass, and beyond it, the hull of the yacht grew smaller. She could see the lights. She could see the outline of the deck where she had been standing, and somewhere up there, she knew her husband was watching her fall. Brandon had pushed her, not with rage, not in some fit of drunken anger. He had done it calmly, the way someone might push open a door. One hand on her lower back, one firm shove. And then she was gone, tipping over the railing, her champagne glass spinning through the air beside her, catching moonlight before it shattered against the side of the boat. In the seconds before she hit the water, she saw his face. He was not panicked. He was not reaching for her. He stood at the railing with both hands at his sides, and he watched. That was the part that would stay with her forever. Not the fall, not the cold, not the way her lungs screamed for air as she sank deeper. It was his face, still, calm, like he had been waiting for this moment. She kicked. She did not know which way was up. The water was black below and barely lighter above, and the weight of her dress dragged at her legs like hands trying to hold her under. Her chest burned. Her arms moved in wild, uncoordinated circles. She had taken swimming lessons as a girl in Atlanta, Saturday mornings at the community center, her mother watching from the bleachers with a towel across her lap. But nothing about those lessons had prepared her for open ocean at night, pushed from a boat by the man who had promised to love her until he died. She broke the surface gasping, pulling air in so hard her throat made a sound like tearing fabric. The yacht was already 40 feet away. Its engine hummed low and steady, and it was moving, not fast. Not in a hurry, just moving, away from her. "Brandon!" she screamed. Her voice was small against the ocean. The water slapped at her face, filling her mouth. She spat it out and screamed again. "Brandon, please!" Nothing. The yacht kept going. The stern lights glowed soft white against the dark, and she could just make out a figure on the deck. He was standing at the railing. He was still watching. Then he turned and walked inside, and the cabin lights came on, and the boat moved further into the night like a slow, patient animal that had already eaten. Tasha treaded water and tried to think. The dress had to go. She reached behind her neck with shaking hands and pulled at the zipper. The silk clung to her skin, heavy and cold, but she managed to peel it down to her waist and then kick it off her legs. It sank immediately, disappearing into the dark water below like it had never existed. She was left in her underwear, shivering so hard her teeth cracked against each other. The yacht was a speck now, a cluster of lights no bigger than a star on the horizon. She was alone. She tried to remember how far they had been from shore. Brandon had chartered the yacht that morning, picking her up from the hotel in Malibu with a bouquet of white roses and a smile that she now understood had been rehearsed. He told her they would sail up the coast, eat dinner under the stars, maybe anchor near Catalina. She had believed every word because why would she not? He was her husband. He had been her husband for 7 years. They had built a house together in Pasadena. They had talked about children. He had held her hand at her mother's funeral 3 years ago and cried right beside her. And now he had pushed her into the Pacific Ocean and driven away. She cried in the water. The tears mixed with salt, and she could not tell which was which. Her legs were getting tired. The cold was settling into her muscles, making them slow and heavy. She knew that if she stopped kicking, she would sink, and this time she might not come back up. "Think, Tasha. Think." She turned in a slow circle, looking for land. The night was clear, and she could see the faint glow of city lights along the coast to the east. It was far, miles maybe, but it was something. She picked a direction and started swimming. She swam for what felt like hours. Her arms burned, her legs cramped. Twice she stopped to float on her back and rest, staring up at the sky full of stars and wondering if this was how she would die. Alone in the ocean, thrown away by the man she had given her life to, she thought about her mother, who had always told her she was stronger than she knew. She thought about Zuri, her best friend since college, who had told her 3 years ago that something about Brandon did not sit right. She thought about the life insurance documents she had found in Brandon's desk drawer 2 weeks ago, the ones with her name on them, the ones with policy amounts that had tripled since their last review. She had asked him about it. He had laughed and said it was just an update, standard stuff, nothing to worry about. She kept swimming. The water got colder. Her body shook so violently that her strokes became uneven, one arm pulling harder than the other. She swallowed water twice and choked it back up, the salt scraping her throat raw. At some point, she realized she could hear waves breaking, and then she could feel the current shifting, pulling her sideways and then forward, and then her foot scraped against something solid and she cried out. Rock. It was rock. She was near shore. She let the waves carry her the rest of the way, tumbling over stones that cut her knees and palms. She crawled out of the water on all fours, dragging herself across wet sand and sharp pebbles, until she was far enough from the tide line that the waves could not reach her. Then she collapsed face down on the cold beach, her chest heaving, her body shaking, alive. She lay there for a long time. The sand stuck to her skin and her hair. Her fingers bled from the rocks. Every muscle in her body felt like it had been wrung out and left to dry. But she was breathing. She was on solid ground. Above her, the sky was starting to lighten at the edges. Dawn was coming. She was somewhere along the coast, she did not know where, wearing nothing but her underwear, covered in cuts and bruises, half frozen and completely alone. But alive. Brandon had pushed her overboard. He had watched her fall. He had driven the yacht away and left her in the ocean to drown. And now, lying on this cold beach with sand in her mouth and blood on her hands, Tasha Patterson made a decision. She was not going to drown. Not tonight, not ever. And Brandon was going to learn exactly what it meant to throw away a woman who knew how to swim. The first thing Tasha heard when she woke was a man's voice, steady and worried, saying words she could not quite put together. The sand underneath her was cold and damp. Her body felt like it had been taken apart and put back together wrong. Every joint ached. Her fingers were stiff and swollen, the cuts on her palms crusted with dried blood and salt. "Hey, can you hear me? Stay still. Help is coming." She opened her eyes. The light was gray and soft, early morning fog rolling in off the water. A man was kneeling beside her. He had taken off his jacket, a dark green field coat, and draped it over her shoulders. His face was concerned, brow creased, jaw tight. He was holding a phone to his ear with one hand and pressing the other gently against her shoulder to keep her from moving. "I found someone on the beach," he was saying into the phone. "Female, early 30s, hypothermic, possibly injured. She needs an ambulance. I am at the cove just north of Point Doom." Point Doom. She was in Malibu. Somehow, the current had carried her back toward the coast, close to where the yacht had departed hours ago. The man ended his call and looked down at her. "You are going to be okay. Paramedics are on the way. Can you tell me your name?" "Tasha." Her voice was a whisper, scraped raw from salt water and screaming. "Tasha Patterson." "Tasha, I am Tristan. I was out here scouting a location for a film. I saw you lying on the rocks from the trail above. Can you tell me what happened?" She tried to sit up and pain shot through her ribs. She winced and lay back down. The man, Tristan, adjusted the coat over her and knelt closer. "Take your time. You do not have to talk right now." But she wanted to. She needed to say it out loud, to make it real, because part of her still could not believe it had happened. "My husband pushed me off a boat." Tristan's face changed. The concern was still there, but something harder settled behind his eyes, something like anger, controlled and quiet. "He pushed you?" "Yes." He did not ask her to repeat it. He did not ask if she was sure. He just nodded and said, "Okay, we are going to get you to a hospital and we are going to make sure you are safe." The paramedics arrived 15 minutes later. They wrapped her in thermal blankets, started an IV, checked her for fractures. One of them said she was lucky. The hypothermia was moderate but not severe. The cuts on her hands and knees were superficial. Her ribs were bruised, not broken. She had swallowed a lot of salt water and her throat was inflamed, but her lungs sounded clear. Lucky. She almost laughed at the word. They loaded her into the ambulance. Tristan climbed in with her, still wearing just his gray sweater, having given her his coat. He told the paramedic he would stay with her until someone else could come. Tasha did not protest. She did not have the energy, and the truth was, she did not want to be alone. At the hospital, they gave her warm fluids and pain medication and treated her cuts. A nurse brought her a set of gray sweatpants and a white t-shirt from the hospital supply. She changed in the bathroom, catching her reflection in the mirror for the first time. Her dark skin was ashy from the salt. Her hair, which she had spent 2 hours styling the night before in loose curls that fell past her shoulders, was matted and tangled. There were dark circles under her brown eyes, and a bruise forming on her left cheekbone where she must have hit a rock. She looked like someone who had nearly died. Because she had. A detective came to see her that afternoon. She introduced herself as Carolyn Ford, a woman in her 50s with short gray hair and reading glasses on a chain around her neck. She sat in the chair beside Tasha's bed and took out a small notebook. "Mrs. Patterson, I need to ask you some questions about what happened last night. Take your time." Tasha told her everything. The anniversary dinner on the yacht, the champagne, Brandon standing beside her at the railing, the push, the fall, the swim, the cold. She told it slowly and clearly, and she did not cry, because she had used up all her tears in the ocean. Detective Ford wrote it all down and asked careful questions. What time did they board the yacht? Who else was on the boat? Had Brandon been drinking? Had they argued? Was there any history of violence? "No," Tasha said. "He never hit me. He never even raised his voice. That is why I did not see it coming." Ford nodded. "Your husband contacted the Coast Guard at approximately 2 a.m. reporting that you had fallen overboard. He said you had been drinking and that you tripped and went over the railing. A search was initiated but called off at daylight when no body was recovered. You were listed as presumed drowned." Presumed drowned. He had reported her as dead. He had not even waited until morning to write her off. "He is lying," Tasha said. "I was not drunk. I had 1 glass of champagne. He pushed me." "I believe you," Ford said, and something in her voice told Tasha that she meant it. "We are going to look into this very carefully, Mrs. Patterson. In the meantime, is there anyone I can call for you?" "Zuri Thompson. She is my best friend. Her number is—" Tasha paused. Her phone was at the bottom of the ocean. "I can give you her number if you give me a moment." Ford handed her a phone and Tasha dialed from memory. Zuri picked up on the second ring, already crying, already saying she had seen the news, already asking where Tasha was and if she was alive. "I am alive," Tasha said. "I am at St. John's Hospital in Santa Monica. Can you come?" Zuri said she was already getting in her car. After Ford left, Tristan came back. He had gone home to change and returned with a bag of things he thought she might need. A toothbrush, a hairbrush, a phone charger, though she had no phone, a bottle of water, and a container of soup from a restaurant near the hospital. "You did not have to do this," she said. "I know," he said. He sat down in the chair Ford had left empty. "I wanted to." She studied him for the first time without the haze of hypothermia clouding her vision. He was tall, with warm brown skin and close-cropped hair. His eyes were dark and kind. She recognized him now, in the way that you recognize someone you have seen on a screen but never expected to meet in person. Tristan Cole. He had been in 3 major films the previous year. He had won an award at Cannes. She had watched his last movie with Brandon on their living room couch, sharing a bowl of popcorn back when she still thought her marriage was real. "I know who you are," she said. "That does not matter right now," he said. "What matters is that you are safe and that you do not have to deal with any of this alone." Zuri arrived an hour later, bursting through the hospital room door in a green blouse and jeans, her locks pulled up in a high bun, her eyes red and swollen from crying. She wrapped her arms around Tasha so tightly that the heart monitor beeped in protest. "I thought you were dead," Zuri whispered. "They said on the news that you drowned. That liar, that absolute liar." "He tried," Tasha said. "He tried to make it true." Zuri pulled back and looked at her, holding Tasha's face between her hands. "What do you need? Tell me what you need and I will make it happen." Tasha looked at Zuri. She looked at the hospital room, at the IV in her arm, at the bruises on her body. She thought about Brandon, probably in their house right now, probably already on the phone with his lawyer, probably already moving money, probably already sitting next to Brielle Lawson, the woman from his office whose perfume Tasha had been finding on his shirts for the past 6 months. "I need a lawyer," Tasha said. "A good one. The best one you can find." Zuri nodded. "Done." Tristan stood up quietly. "I will leave you two to talk. Tasha, if you need anything at all, here is my number." He wrote it on a napkin and set it on the bedside table. "I mean it. Anything." After he left, Zuri looked at the napkin, then back at Tasha. "Was that Tristan Cole?" "Yes." "The Tristan Cole?" "Yes, Zuri." Zuri let out a long breath. "Okay, we will deal with that later. Right now, let us focus on making sure Brandon Patterson never sleeps well again." For the first time in 24 hours, Tasha almost smiled. Brandon Patterson stood in front of a cluster of reporters outside his Pasadena home 2 days after the incident and told the most convincing lie of his life. He wore a Navy suit, his eyes were red, and he held a tissue in his left hand. He said that his wife, Tasha, had been drinking heavily during their anniversary dinner on the yacht. He said she had wandered to the railing while he was in the cabin. He said he heard a splash and ran out to find her gone. He said he threw a life ring. He said he called the Coast Guard immediately. He said he had been devastated ever since. Tasha watched the press conference from her hospital bed, and she felt her blood turn to ice in a way that the ocean had not managed. "He is good," she said quietly. Zuri, sitting beside her, shook her head. "He is a liar, and liars get caught." The news anchor moved on to other stories, but the damage was already spreading. Social media was full of comments. Some people felt sorry for Brandon, a beautiful wife, lost at sea, a grieving husband. Others were suspicious. Something about his eyes, they said. Something about the way he dabbed at tears that never quite fell. Tasha turned off the television and stared at the ceiling. She had spent the past 48 hours in the hospital recovering physically while her mind worked overtime. Detective Ford had visited again that morning with an update. The Coast Guard had confirmed Brandon's timeline. He had called for help approximately 90 minutes after Tasha said she was pushed. 90 minutes. That meant he had waited on that yacht for an hour and a half before reporting anything. Ford said that detail alone was enough to keep the investigation open. But it was not just the push. Tasha had started putting together the pieces of a picture she had refused to see for months. There was the life insurance. 2 weeks before the yacht trip, she had found documents in Brandon's home office showing that her policy had been increased from $200,000 to $1.5 million. When she asked him about it, he had waved it off. "Just updating our coverage," he said. "We are getting older. It is the smart thing to do." There was Brielle Lawson. For 6 months, Tasha had found traces of another woman in her life. A receipt for dinner at a restaurant she and Brandon had never been to. A text notification on his phone that he swiped away too quickly. The perfume, always the perfume, something floral and sharp that clung to his collar and was nothing like the vanilla scent Tasha wore. She had confronted him once, 3 months ago. He had looked at her with those big brown eyes and said she was being paranoid. He said Brielle was just a colleague at the real estate firm. He said Tasha was letting her insecurities damage their marriage. He had turned it around so smoothly that she had ended up apologizing to him. She would never apologize to Brandon Patterson again. That afternoon, Zuri returned with news. She had found a lawyer, Pamela Grant, a divorce attorney with a reputation for taking apart cheating husbands with the precision of a surgeon. Pamela had agreed to come to the hospital that evening for a consultation. Pamela Grant walked into the room at 6 p.m. sharp. She was a tall, slender woman in a crisp maroon blazer, with silver-streaked hair pulled back in a low bun and reading glasses perched on her nose. She carried a leather briefcase and shook Tasha's hand with a grip that said she did not waste time. "Mrs. Patterson, Zuri gave me the basics. I need you to tell me everything, and I need you to leave nothing out." Tasha told her. The marriage, the years of what she thought was happiness, the slow unraveling, the perfume, the late nights, the insurance documents, the yacht, the push, the swim, the rescue. Pamela listened without interrupting, making notes on a yellow legal pad. When Tasha finished, Pamela removed her glasses and looked at her directly. "Here is what I can tell you right now. You have grounds for divorce on multiple counts: infidelity, financial misconduct, And what happened on that yacht may rise to the level of attempted murder. But that is Detective Ford's territory, not mine. My job is to make sure that when this marriage ends, you walk away with everything you are entitled to and then some. What about the money? Tasha asked. I know he has been moving things around. I do not have access to our accounts anymore. He changed the passwords last month, said the bank required new security protocols. That is not what banks do, Pamela said flatly. He was hiding assets. I have a forensic accountant who can trace every dollar. If he moved money, we will find it. If he opened accounts in other names, we will find those too. Pamela opened her briefcase and pulled out a folder. I took the liberty of running a preliminary check. Your husband purchased a property in Palm Springs 4 months ago. It is not in his name. It is in the name of a Betrayal Lawson. The room was silent for a moment. Then Tasha let out a long, slow breath. He bought her a house. A condo, 2 bedrooms, pool. Current market value approximately $650,000. Purchased using funds from an account that does not appear in any of your joint financial records. Tasha felt something shift inside her. Not sadness, not shock. She was past both of those. What she felt was clarity. Hard, clean, bright clarity, like stepping out of a fog into sharp daylight. Take everything, she said. Every dollar he hid, every property, every account. I want it all on the table in front of a judge. Pamela put her glasses back on and smiled. It was a small, precise smile. That is exactly what I was hoping you would say. Over the next week, things began to move. Pamela filed for divorce. She filed for an emergency protective order. She subpoenaed financial records from Brandon's firm, their bank, and 3 separate investment accounts that the forensic accountant had already identified. Brandon, through his attorney, responded with outrage. He claimed Tasha was delusional. He said the push never happened. He said she was a troubled woman with a drinking problem who was now trying to destroy him out of spite. Detective Ford called Tasha to tell her that Brandon had passed a polygraph test. Tasha was not surprised. Brandon had always been the calmest liar she had ever met. Polygraphs are not admissible in court, Ford said, and they can be beaten by people who believe their own stories. We are still investigating. I have requested the yacht's GPS data and any surveillance footage from the marina. Tasha thanked her and hung up. Zuri came by every day. She brought food, clothes, and updates from the outside world. The story had gotten bigger. Tasha Patterson, the woman who survived, was now a name people recognized. Some outlets called her a miracle. Others called her a liar. The internet, as always, had opinions about everything. But there was one thing nobody could deny. Tasha was alive. She was not supposed to be, but she was. And she was getting stronger every day. On her last night in the hospital, before she was to be discharged the next morning, she stood at the window and looked out at the city lights. Somewhere out there, Brandon was sleeping in their bed, probably with Brielle beside him. Somewhere out there, he was spending money he had stolen from their marriage and planning his next move. He thought she was broken. He thought the push, the ocean, the near death had shattered her into someone who would be too afraid and too weak to fight back. He was going to learn how wrong he was. Tasha left the hospital on a Tuesday morning wearing borrowed clothes and carrying nothing. No purse, no wallet, no keys, no phone. Everything she had owned was either at the bottom of the Pacific or locked inside the Pasadena house that the protective order now kept her away from, at least until Pamela could file a motion to reclaim her personal belongings. Brandon's attorney had argued that the protective order should cut both ways, and the judge, in a move that made Pamela's jaw tighten, had agreed to a temporary cooling-off period that kept both parties from the shared residence. Zuri pulled up to the hospital entrance in her gray Honda and looked at Tasha with soft, steady eyes. I cleaned out the guest room. It is not much, but it is yours for as long as you need it. Tasha got in the car and buckled her seatbelt. She looked at the hospital entrance in the rearview mirror and said nothing for a full minute. "Thank you," she finally said. Zuri's apartment was in Culver City, a 2-bedroom on the 3rd floor of a building with a pool that nobody ever used. The guest room was small but clean, with a twin bed, a white dresser, and a window that faced east. Zuri had put fresh flowers on the nightstand, yellow daisies in a blue glass vase, and laid out towels on the bed. Tasha sat on the edge of the mattress and looked around. This was her life now. No house, no savings she could access, no car, no closet full of clothes. 7 years of marriage reduced to a borrowed room and a vase of daisies. She could have cried. Part of her wanted to, but the part of her that had swum through the Pacific Ocean in the dark was louder, and that part said, "You are not done yet. You are just starting." The next few weeks were about building a foundation from nothing. Pamela worked fast. She filed motions to freeze Brandon's accounts pending the financial investigation. She obtained an emergency order granting Tasha access to marital funds for living expenses. The court awarded Tasha a temporary monthly stipend of $4,000, drawn from the joint checking account, which Brandon contested immediately but lost. The forensic accountant, a quiet man named Jerome Watts, began his work. What he found was worse than Tasha had imagined. Brandon had been siphoning money from their joint accounts for over 2 years. Small amounts at first, $1,000 here, $2,000 there, funneled into an account under his mother's name. His mother had been dead for 5 years. The account was active, and the balance was just over $300,000. He had taken out a second mortgage on their Pasadena house without Tasha's knowledge, forging her signature on the documents. The proceeds, $420,000, had gone into a business account for a company called Lawson Patterson, LLC. Brielle Lawson was listed as co-owner. Pamela laid it all out on the table in her office, the spreadsheets, the forged documents, the shell company filings. "He was building a new life," Pamela said, "with her, using your money, and the life insurance payout from your death would have been the final piece. $1.5 million, and you would have been at the bottom of the ocean." Tasha stared at the documents. She had known Brandon was selfish. She had known he was dishonest. But seeing the scope of his betrayal laid out in columns and numbers made something harden inside her. "What can we do?" she asked. "Everything," Pamela said. "This is fraud, forgery, financial abuse. Combined with the ongoing criminal investigation, he is looking at serious consequences. On the divorce side, I am going to make sure you receive the majority of marital assets, plus damages." He thought he was smart. He was not smart enough. Tasha used part of her stipend to buy a prepaid phone. She used the rest for necessities, groceries, toiletries, a few basic pieces of clothing from a thrift store. She bought herself a pair of running shoes, dark blue with white soles, and a set of workout clothes in deep green. She started running. At first, it was terrible. She had never been a runner. Her lungs burned after half a mile. Her legs ached. The bruises from the ocean were still fading, and her ribs protested with every stride. But she kept going. Every morning, before the sun was fully up, she laced up those blue shoes and ran through the streets of Culver City. She ran because it was the only thing she could control. She could not control Brandon's lies. She could not control the court timeline. She could not control what the detectives found or did not find. But she could control her body. She could make it stronger. She could make it faster. She could rebuild herself from the outside in and prove, at least to herself, that what Brandon had tried to destroy could not be destroyed. Tristan called her the following week. She had almost forgotten about the napkin with his number, but he had gotten her new number through Zuri. "How are you doing?" he asked. His voice was calm and straightforward, no performance in it. "Surviving," she said. "That is more than most people could say after what you went through. Are you eating? Sleeping?" "Trying." He paused. "Listen, I do not want to overstep, but I have been through some hard times in my life, and the thing that helped me most was having people around who did not want anything from me. If you ever want to talk, or not talk, or just sit somewhere and drink coffee and stare at the wall, I am available for that." She almost smiled. "That is a very specific offer." "I am a very specific person." She did not take him up on it right away. She was not ready for company beyond Zuri, but knowing the offer was there, steady and undemanding, meant something. Dr. Anita Okafor came into her life in the 3rd week. Pamela had recommended a therapist, and Zuri had made the appointment. Dr. Okafor was a Nigerian-American woman in her 40s with a calm, direct manner and an office in Santa Monica decorated with plants and natural light. "I do not do gentle," Dr. Okafor said at the start of their first session. "I am kind, but I am not gentle. If that works for you, we will work well together." "That works for me," Tasha said. They talked about Brandon. They talked about the ocean. They talked about the way Tasha had spent 7 years making herself smaller so that Brandon could feel bigger, agreeing with him when she disagreed, apologizing when she had nothing to apologize for, accepting explanations that her gut told her were lies because the alternative, that her husband did not love her, was too painful to face. The ocean did not break you, Dr. Okafor said. It just showed you what was already broken. Tasha sat with that for a long time. By the end of the first month, things were shifting. Her runs got longer. A mile became 3. 3 became 5. She started adding bodyweight exercises, push-ups and squats and planks in Zuri's living room while Zuri sketched at the kitchen table. The legal case was building momentum. Detective Ford had obtained the marina surveillance footage. It showed Brandon and Tasha boarding the yacht at 4 p.m. It showed the yacht departing. And it showed Brandon returning alone at 3:30 a.m. Walking down the dock with his hands in his pockets, his posture relaxed, like a man coming home from a pleasant evening. No panic, no urgency, no sign that his wife was missing in the ocean. Ford told Tasha that the footage was strong but not conclusive on its own. They needed more. They were working on it. Tasha hung up the phone and went for a run. 5 miles that day turned into 6. She did not stop until her legs could not carry her anymore, and then she walked the rest of the way home, sweating and breathing hard and feeling, for the first time since that night on the water, like herself. Not the old version, something new. Tasha moved out of Zuri's guest room 6 weeks after leaving the hospital. It was not that Zuri's place was uncomfortable or that Zuri was not the best friend a person could ask for. It was that Tasha needed a space that was hers alone. She needed to wake up in a room that did not belong to someone else. She needed to feel the weight of her own independence, even if it was small. She found a studio apartment in Inglewood, a ground-floor unit with white walls, a tiny kitchen, and a window that looked out onto a courtyard with a single palm tree. The rent was $1,400 a month, which ate most of her court-ordered stipend, but it was hers. She signed the lease with her own name and her own money, and when she closed the door behind her for the first time, she stood in the empty room and breathed. Zuri helped her move in. There was not much to move. A mattress from a second-hand store, 2 sets of sheets, a lamp, a folding table, 3 plates, 3 bowls, and a mismatched set of silverware from the same thrift store where she had bought her workout clothes. Zuri brought a framed photo of the 2 of them from college, both of them grinning in matching green hoodies, and hung it on the wall beside the window. "Palace," Zuri said, looking around the bare studio. "Mine," Tasha said. That is what makes it a palace. Tasha's physical transformation had already begun during the weeks at Zuri's apartment, but in the studio, it accelerated. Without the cushion of someone else's routine, she built her own. She woke at 5:30 every morning. She ran 3 miles. She came back, showered, ate oatmeal with fruit, and then did a full hour of bodyweight training in the small open space between her mattress and the kitchen counter. She had no gym membership. She could not afford one. So she used what she had: the floor for push-ups and planks, the kitchen counter for incline push-ups, the door frame for stretches, a pair of filled water jugs for arm curls. She looked up routines on her prepaid phone and followed along, and when those got easy, she looked up harder ones. Her body responded. The softness around her midsection tightened. Her arms, which had always been slender, gained visible definition. Her legs, already strong from running, became powerful. She could see the changes in the mirror each morning, and each change was a small piece of proof that she was not the woman Brandon had thrown away. She was someone else, someone being built from the ground up. Zuri noticed. Tristan noticed, the few times he called. Even Dr. Okafor noticed. "You are channeling your anger into something productive," Okafor said during one of their sessions. "That is healthy. Just make sure you are also processing the anger and not just burning it off." "I am doing both," Tasha said. And she was. The runs were for her body. The therapy sessions were for her mind. The legal meetings with Pamela were for her future. She was attacking her recovery on every front, systematically, the way she used to attack marketing campaigns in her old career. Her old career. She had worked in marketing for a lifestyle brand before she married Brandon. She had been good at it, creative and strategic, with an eye for what made people stop scrolling and pay attention. Brandon had encouraged her to quit after the wedding. He was making enough money for both of them, he said. Why stress yourself with a job when you do not need to? She had agreed because she thought that was what partnership meant. She thought she was choosing their future together. Now she understood that he had been isolating her, cutting off her income, making her dependent on him. It was control disguised as generosity, and she had walked right into it. She was not going to let that happen again. In her 7th week in the studio, she started documenting her workouts, not for anyone else, just for herself. She propped her phone against a shoe and filmed herself doing a 30-minute workout in her tiny living space, wearing a bright blue sports bra and green leggings. She watched it back and thought, "This looks real. This looks like someone who has been through something and is fighting her way out. This looks like the truth." She did not post it. Not yet, but she saved it. Tristan called on a Thursday evening. "I have been thinking about something," he said, "and I want to run it by you, and I want you to feel completely free to say no." "Go ahead." "There is a charity gala next month, a foundation that supports survivors of domestic violence. I am on the board. It is formal, it is public, and it will be full of cameras and reporters. I want to invite you, but only if you are ready for that." Tasha was quiet for a moment. "Why me?" "Because you survived something that most people cannot imagine, and I think your presence would mean something, not as a victim, as someone who is standing." She thought about it. She thought about the reporters, the cameras, the questions. She thought about Brandon seeing her on television. She thought about walking into a room full of people with her head up, wearing something beautiful, looking strong, and letting the world see that she had not been destroyed. "What would I wear?" she asked. "Whatever you want." "I do not own anything formal. I do not own much of anything." "I can take care of that." "No." "Thank you, but no. I will figure it out myself." She could almost hear him smiling through the phone. "Okay, I will send you the details." After she hung up, she sat on her mattress and looked at the ceiling. The gala was 4 weeks away. She had 4 weeks to get herself ready, not just physically, but mentally. She had to be prepared for what it would mean to step into the public eye, to attach her face to the story that the media had been telling in bits and pieces for 2 months. She picked up her phone and called Zuri. "I need a dress," she said. "Something red. Something that makes a statement." "Now we are talking," Zuri said. In the meantime, the legal case continued to build. Pamela called with updates every few days. Jerome Watts, the forensic accountant, had traced another hidden account, this one in the Cayman Islands, holding just over $170,000. Brandon's attorney was fighting every subpoena, every motion, every discovery request, but Pamela was relentless. She did not lose. She did not back down, and she had the evidence. Detective Ford called too. The yacht's GPS data had confirmed Tasha's timeline. The boat had stopped for approximately 12 minutes at the coordinates where Tasha said she was pushed, then resumed course back to the marina. Brandon had claimed the stop was because he was looking for Tasha after she fell, but the 12-minute stop was followed by a direct, uninterrupted course back to shore. No circling, no search pattern, no behavior consistent with a man looking for his wife in the water. "We are building the case," Ford said. "It is slow, but it is solid." Tasha hung up and put on her running shoes. She ran 7 miles that evening, her longest yet. The sun was setting over Inglewood, painting the sky in shades of blue and pink, and she ran through it all, her feet hitting the pavement in a steady rhythm that felt like a heartbeat. She was alive. She was getting stronger. She was going to walk into that gala in 4 weeks and show the world what rising looked like. And Brandon would see it, whether he wanted to or not. Tasha posted her first video on a Tuesday. She had filmed it the night before in her studio apartment, the camera propped on a stack of books on the kitchen counter. She wore a cobalt blue tank top and maroon leggings, and she did a 30-minute full-body workout using nothing but her body weight and 2 water jugs. No music, no fancy editing, no filters, just her, the small room, and the sound of her own breathing. She captioned it, "Day 1 of the rest of my life. No gym, no equipment, no excuses, just me." She did not use her real name. The account was called Rising Tide Fitness, and her profile photo was a close-up of her running shoes on the pavement. Zuri had designed a simple logo, a wave curling upward into a sunrise, clean lines in blue and gold. By the end of the first day, the video had 400 views. By the end of the week, it had 12,000. By the end of the second week, it had 90,000. Tasha did not understand it at first. She watched the numbers climb on her little prepaid phone and felt a mixture of confusion and something that might have been hope. The comments were overwhelming. "This is exactly what I needed to see today. Real fitness for real people. No fancy studio, no expensive gear, just work. Who is this woman? Her energy is everything." She posted again and again. 3 videos a week, each one filmed in her studio with the same no-frills approach. She showed modifications for beginners. She talked about nutrition on a budget. She filmed her runs through Inglewood at sunrise, her reflection flashing across store windows, her breath visible in the cool morning air. She never mentioned Brandon. She never mentioned the yacht or the ocean or any of what had happened. The videos were not about her past. They were about what was possible when you decided to start over. Zuri watched the numbers and started getting excited. "This is not a hobby anymore, Tasha. This is a brand. You need a website. You need a content strategy. You need merchandise." "I need to focus on not losing my mind," Tasha said, but she was smiling when she said it. Zuri, who had worked as a graphic designer for 10 years before going freelance, threw herself into the project. She built a website over a weekend. She designed branded graphics for social media. She created a color palette, blue, gold, and white, and a consistent visual identity that made every post look like it belonged to the same family. The following grew: 100,000 followers in 3 weeks, then 200,000. Then, when a popular fitness magazine reposted one of her videos with the caption, "The most real workout account on the internet," the number jumped to 500,000 in 4 days. That was when Dominic Reeves called. Dominic was a talent manager based in Beverly Hills. He was in his late 40s, compact and energetic, with a shaved head and a preference for sharp blue suits. He had managed athletes, influencers, and 2 reality television stars before pivoting to lifestyle brands. He had seen Tasha's videos, recognized the potential, and tracked down her email through the website's contact form. "I will be direct," he said when they met at a coffee shop in Santa Monica. "You have something that cannot be manufactured. You are real. People can feel it. They do not know your story yet, but they can feel that there is one, and that makes them lean in. I want to help you turn this into something that will support you for the rest of your life." Tasha studied him. She had learned, the hard way, to be cautious about people who made promises. "What exactly are you proposing?" "Management. I handle partnerships, brand deals, media appearances, and long-term strategy. I take 15%. You keep creative control. You decide what you share, when you share it, and how. I just make sure the right people see it and that you get paid what you are worth." She looked at Zuri, who had come along and was sitting beside her with her arms crossed. "He is legitimate," Zuri said. "I checked. His clients like him. He has never had a lawsuit filed against him, and his track record is strong." Tasha turned back to Dominic. "I need to think about it." "Take all the time you need," he said. "But the window for this kind of momentum does not stay open forever. Timing matters." She thought about it for 3 days. She talked to Pamela, who reviewed the management contract and found it clean. She talked to Dr. Okafor, who helped her examine whether she was making the decision from a place of strength or desperation. She talked to Tristan, who told her that in his experience, the best opportunities came when you were not looking for them. She signed with Dominic on a Friday afternoon. Within a week, brand deals started coming in. A sportswear company wanted her to model their new line of affordable activewear. A nutrition brand wanted a partnership. A streaming platform was interested in a short documentary series about her fitness journey. Tasha said yes to the sportswear deal and the nutrition partnership. She said no to the documentary. She was not ready to tell her full story yet, not on someone else's terms. The sportswear photo shoot happened on a Saturday morning at a studio in downtown Los Angeles. She wore their clothes, bright greens and blues, and a stunning red set that would become the campaign's hero image. The photographer told her to look strong. She did not have to try. The images went live the following Tuesday and were everywhere within hours. Social media, billboards, bus stop ads. A beautiful woman in red workout gear, her brown skin glowing under bright studio lights, her expression fierce and focused and alive. Nobody knew she was Tasha Patterson. Not yet. The sportswear brand knew her as the face behind Rising Tide Fitness. The public knew her as a name with no backstory, just results. And she wanted to keep it that way, at least for now. But the gala was approaching, and at the gala there would be no anonymity. Zuri found the dress. She had been searching for weeks, calling in favors, visiting consignment shops, reaching out to emerging designers who might be willing to dress an unknown. She finally connected with a designer in Silver Lake named Camille Fontaine who specialized in custom gowns for women of color. When Zuri showed Camille a photo of Tasha, Camille said yes immediately. The fitting was on a Wednesday afternoon. Camille's studio was bright and airy, full of fabric bolts and sketches pinned to the walls. The dress was red, not subtle red, not muted red. Red like a flame, like a stop sign, like the color of a heart beating hard and fast. It had a high neckline, a fitted bodice, and a skirt that flowed to the floor with a subtle slit on the left side. It was elegant without being fussy, powerful without trying too hard. Tasha stood in front of the full-length mirror and stared at herself. She barely recognized the woman looking back. The months of running, training, eating clean, sleeping hard, and fighting for her life had transformed her. Her arms were sculpted. Her posture was straight and sure. Her skin was clear and glowing, her dark brown eyes steady. Her hair, which she had stopped trying to control and simply let grow into its natural texture, framed her face in soft, defined curls. This was not the woman Brandon had pushed off a yacht. This was someone new, someone built from the bones of who she used to be, stronger in every place where she had once been soft. "You look like a weapon," Zuri said from behind her, then caught herself. "Wait, scratch that. You look like a woman who is done taking orders." Tasha smoothed the red fabric over her hips and smiled. Not a big smile, a quiet one. The kind that comes from a place so deep that it surprises even the person wearing it. "I am ready," she said. The charity gala was held at the Broad Museum in downtown Los Angeles on a Saturday evening in mid-March. The building was lit up against the night sky, its white honeycomb exterior glowing under cool white spotlights. Town cars and limousines lined the block. Photographers crowded the entrance, their cameras clicking in a constant rhythm. Tasha sat in the back of the car Tristan had sent and watched the scene through the tinted window. Her stomach was tight. Her palms were damp. She had faced the Pacific Ocean at night and survived, but somehow, walking into a room full of strangers with cameras felt like a different kind of terrifying. She looked down at the red dress. Camille had done a final adjustment that morning, and it fit perfectly. Tasha had done her own hair, pulling her natural curls up on one side and letting them fall loose on the other. Zuri had loaned her a pair of gold earrings, simple drops that caught the light. Her makeup was minimal. Smooth brown skin, soft lip color, and just enough liner to make her dark eyes pop. "You can do this," she told herself. Then she opened the door and stepped out. The cameras hit her immediately, flashes everywhere, so bright and fast that for a moment she could not see. She blinked, steadied herself, and walked forward. Over here, the photographers called. "Who are you wearing? Can you turn to the left? One more. She did not answer the questions. She just walked. One foot in front of the other, chin up, shoulders back, the red dress moving around her like it had been designed to make people stop and stare. And they did. Up and down the line, people turned to look. Who is she? Do you know her? She looks incredible. Tristan met her at the end of the press line. He was wearing a dark blue suit with a white shirt, open at the collar. He offered his arm, not possessively, just a steadying gesture. "You okay?" he asked quietly. "Ask me in an hour," she said. Inside the museum, the gala was stunning. The main hall had been transformed with white draping, cool blue uplighting, and round tables set with crystal and silver. A jazz quartet played in the corner. 300 guests circulated, drinks in hand, their conversations a low, constant hum. Tristan introduced her to people, board members, foundation donors, a congresswoman from California, a best-selling author. Each time, he simply said, "This is Tasha," and let her take it from there. He did not tell her story for her. He did not explain who she was or what she had been through. He just opened the door and let her walk through it. And she did. She shook hands. She made eye contact. She answered questions about her fitness brand with confidence. When people asked how she got started, she said, "I lost everything and decided to build something new. It was the truth without being the whole truth, and it was enough." The evening's program included a keynote speech by a woman who had escaped domestic violence and started a shelter in East Los Angeles. The speech was powerful and direct, no sentimentality, just facts and feeling. Tasha sat in her chair and listened, her hands folded in her lap, and felt something inside her crack open, not in a painful way, but like a seed splitting so the root can grow. After the speech, the gala transitioned to its social hour. That was when the questions started getting sharper. A reporter from a digital entertainment outlet approached her near the bar. "Excuse me, you were Tristan Cole's guest tonight?" "Yes." "And your name is Tasha Patterson?" The reporter's eyes were bright. She had clearly done some research before arriving. "Are you the same Tasha Patterson who was reported missing after falling from a yacht last October?" Tasha's chest tightened, but she kept her expression steady. She had known this moment would come. She had prepared for it. "I am," she said. "There were reports that your husband pushed you overboard. Can you comment on that?" Tasha looked at the reporter. She could have deflected. She could have said no comment and walked away. But standing in that museum, in that red dress, in the body she had rebuilt from nothing, she decided to take one small step forward. "I survived something that was meant to destroy me. I'm standing here because I chose to live. That is all I am willing to say tonight." The reporter opened her mouth to follow up, but Tristan appeared at Tasha's side and gently redirected the conversation. "This is a fundraiser," he said pleasantly, "not a press conference." The reporter backed off, but the interaction had been noticed. By the end of the evening, Tasha's photo was on 3 entertainment websites. "Mystery Woman in Red at Cole Foundation Gala," read one headline. "Yacht survivor Tasha Patterson makes stunning public appearance," read another. By the next morning, the story was everywhere. Brandon saw it. He saw the photos of Tasha in the red dress, standing beside one of the most famous actors in the country, looking healthy and strong and radiant. He saw the comments, thousands of them, calling her brave, calling her beautiful, calling her a survivor. Brandon called his attorney. His attorney called Pamela Grant. Pamela called Tasha. "He is panicking," Pamela said. "His lawyer is suddenly very interested in settling the divorce quickly and quietly. He knows that every day this stays in the news, his position gets worse." "I am not settling," Tasha said. "I did not think so. I just wanted you to know that the pressure is working." The following week was a cascade. Brand deals multiplied. Dominic fielded calls from morning to night. 2 television shows wanted interviews. 3 magazines wanted features. A book publisher reached out about a potential memoir. Tasha said no to most of it. She was not ready to become a public spectacle. She chose carefully one magazine interview with a women's publication that agreed to let her review the article before printing. One television appearance, a 3-minute segment on a morning show where she talked about her fitness brand and said nothing about the details of her case. She controlled the narrative. She decided what people knew and what they did not. And what they saw was a woman in control, not angry, not bitter, just firmly, quietly in charge of her own story. Rising Tide Fitness crossed 1 million followers, then 1.5 million. The sportswear campaign was extended for another season. Revenue from online programs and partnerships meant that Tasha could stop relying on the court-ordered stipend. She opened her own bank account. She bought a car, a used but reliable blue sedan. She moved from the studio apartment to a 1-bedroom in Marina del Rey with a balcony that overlooked the water. She stood on that balcony on her first night in the new apartment and looked out at the ocean. The same ocean that had nearly killed her. The same water she had swum through in the dark, bleeding and freezing and terrified. It looked different now, not like a grave, like a beginning. The conference room at Pamela Grant's law office was large and cold and smelled like fresh paper. The long table in the center was covered in documents, stacked neatly, tabbed and color-coded, the result of 5 months of forensic investigation. Tasha sat at one end of the table. Pamela sat beside her. Across from them sat Brandon's attorney, a tall man named Richard Colby who wore an expensive gray suit and a nervous expression. Beside Colby sat Brandon. It was the first time Tasha had seen her husband since the night he pushed her into the ocean. He had aged. His face was thinner, with dark circles under his eyes and a tightness in his jaw that she remembered from the times when things did not go his way. He was wearing a blue suit, but it did not fit the way his suits used to fit. He looked smaller, diminished. He tried to make eye contact with her. She looked past him at the wall. Pamela opened the proceedings. We are here today for the final deposition in the matter of Patterson v. Patterson. Before we begin, I want to enter into the record the complete findings of the forensic financial investigation conducted by Jerome Watts, CPA. She laid it out piece by piece. Account number 1. The account under Brandon's deceased mother's name. Balance at discovery, $312,000. Source of funds, systematic transfers from the joint Patterson checking and savings accounts over 26 months. Account number 2, Lawson, Patterson LLC, a shell company co-owned by Brandon and Brielle Lawson. Total assets, including the Palm Springs condo, $740,000. Source of funds, proceeds from the forged second mortgage and diverted commission income from Brandon's real estate sales. Account number 3, the Cayman Islands account. Balance at discovery, $172,000. Source of funds, bonus payments from Brandon's firm that were never disclosed to Tasha or reflected in their joint tax filings. Total hidden assets, $1.2 million. Brandon's attorney objected to the presentation. Pamela overruled him with evidence. Colby attempted to argue that the accounts were legitimate business investments. Pamela produced the forged mortgage documents side by side with Tasha's actual signature on a separate document and the handwriting analysis report confirming the forgery. Brandon sat very still. Pamela continued. In addition to the financial fraud, the respondent changed the beneficiary and coverage amount on a life insurance policy for the petitioner without her knowledge or consent, tripling the payout to $1.5 million approximately 14 days before the incident on the yacht. She placed the insurance documents on the table. The respondent also failed to disclose the existence of an extramarital relationship with Brielle Lawson, which has been ongoing for at least 18 months based on financial records, hotel reservations, and communication logs obtained through discovery. More documents, hotel receipts, restaurant charges, text message transcripts obtained legally through subpoena that showed Brandon and Brielle discussing their future, their condo, and their plans for after. After what? The texts never said explicitly, but the implication sat in the room like a third person. Brandon's attorney asked for a recess. Pamela agreed. Brandon and Colby left the room. Tasha sat in silence for a moment. Her hands were steady. Her breathing was even. She had expected this to feel more dramatic, more emotional. But she realized, sitting in that cold conference room, that she had already done the hard part. The hard part was swimming. The hard part was getting out of the hospital with nothing. The hard part was running her first mile on bruised ribs. This, the legal dismantling of the lie Brandon had built, was just paperwork. Important paperwork, but paperwork. He is going to try to settle, Pamela said. His attorney knows they cannot win this. Good, Tasha said. But I want the judge to see everything. I want it on the record. It will be. The recess lasted 20 minutes. When Brandon and Colby returned, Colby looked like he had been arguing with his client. Brandon's jaw was set, his eyes fixed on the table. My client is prepared to agree to a division of assets, Colby began. Not a division, Pamela said. A restoration. Your client stole over $1 million from the marital estate through fraud and forgery. He will return every dollar, plus interest, plus damages. The petitioner will retain the Pasadena house, which should never have been encumbered without her consent. The forged mortgage will be challenged and voided, and the court will be made aware of the full scope of the financial misconduct so that appropriate penalties can be assessed. Colby looked at Brandon. Brandon looked at the table. We will need time to review, Colby said. You have 72 hours, Pamela said. After they left, Pamela allowed herself a rare, full smile. That went well. What about the criminal case? Tasha asked. Detective Ford called me this morning. The yacht's navigation system had a backup data recorder that Brandon did not know about. It logged every change in speed, heading, and engine status. According to the data, the yacht came to a complete stop for 12 minutes at the location you described, then resumed course at full speed directly back to the marina. There was no search. There was no circling. He stopped, waited, and left. Tasha nodded slowly. Ford is presenting the case to the district attorney this week. Combined with the financial evidence and the insurance timing, there is a strong case for attempted murder. The word hung in the air. Attempted murder, not accident, not misunderstanding, not the story Brandon had told to the reporters and the Coast Guard and anyone who would listen. "What about Brielle?" Tasha asked. Not because she cared about Brielle, she did not, but she needed to know if there would be complications. Brielle Lawson has retained her own attorney. According to our sources, she ended her relationship with Brandon 2 weeks ago when she discovered the full extent of the financial situation. The Palm Springs condo is likely to be seized as part of the asset recovery. She is reportedly cooperating with investigators. Good. Let Brielle deal with her own mess. Tasha had no interest in that woman, not her problems, not her regrets, not her future. Brielle was a chapter in someone else's story. Tasha drove home to her Marina del Rey apartment. She parked her blue sedan, climbed the stairs to the second floor, and walked out onto the balcony. The ocean stretched out before her, bright and silver under the afternoon sun. She had looked Brandon in the eye today, the man who had pushed her into the water, the man who had stolen her money, betrayed her with another woman, and tried to profit from her death. She had looked at him, and she had not flinched, and she had not felt afraid. She felt free. The invitation came from Tristan's publicist on a Thursday morning, 3 weeks after the deposition. The premiere of Meridian at the TCL Chinese Theater. Red carpet at 6 p.m. Tristan would like Tasha Patterson to attend as his guest of honor. Meridian was the biggest film of the season, a psychological thriller that had been generating awards buzz since its festival debut. The premiere would be covered by every major entertainment outlet in the world. Every camera, every reporter, every lens would be pointed at that red carpet. Tasha read the invitation twice. Then she called Tristan. "Guest of honor?" she said. "You have earned it," he said. "This is not charity, Tasha. I am not doing you a favor. I am proud to walk in there with someone who represents what real strength looks like. But only if you want to. There is no pressure." She thought about it for exactly 1 minute. "I want to." Zuri took the assignment like a general planning, a military operation. Hair, makeup, stylist, dress, shoes, jewelry, all of it coordinated down to the minute. Camille Fontaine, the designer who had made the red gala dress, was brought back for a second commission. This time, the dress was emerald green, a deep, rich jewel tone that made Tasha's dark skin glow. The design was strapless with a sweetheart neckline, a fitted waist, and a full skirt that pulled slightly at the floor. A slit on the right side showed just enough leg. Simple gold jewelry, gold heels. Hair pulled back in an elegant updo that showed off her neck and shoulders. The day of the premiere, Tasha spent the morning with Dr. Okafor. "How are you feeling?" Okafor asked. "Nervous, but not the bad kind. The kind that means something is about to happen." "Good. That means you are present. Just remember, whatever happens tonight, you have already won. Everything else is just the world catching up to what you already know." At 5:30 p.m., a black car picked Tasha up from her apartment. She sat in the back seat with her hands in her lap, watching Los Angeles slide by through the window. The city was golden in the late afternoon light, buildings and palm trees sharp against a blue sky. She thought about the woman who had washed up on a beach 8 months ago, half dead, with nothing. She thought about the woman sitting in this car, healthy, strong, dressed in emerald green, heading to a premiere. Same woman, different story. The car pulled up to the Chinese Theater at 5:50. The red carpet stretched from the curb to the entrance, flanked by metal barriers and hundreds of people. The noise was immense, cameras clicking, fans calling out, music pulsing from speakers mounted on light poles. Tristan was waiting at the drop-off point. He wore a charcoal suit with an emerald pocket square that matched her dress exactly. It had been Zuri's idea. He smiled when he saw her. "You look incredible," he said. "Thank you," she said. "So do you." They walked the carpet together. and the cameras went berserk. Tasha Patterson, the woman from the yacht, the face of Rising Tide Fitness, walking the red carpet at the biggest premiere of the year in an emerald green gown that made her look like she owned every room she had ever walked into. The questions came fast. Tasha, can you tell us about your fitness journey? Tasha, what is next for Rising Tide? Tasha, are you and Tristan together? Tasha, is there an update on the criminal investigation? She answered the one she wanted to answer and smiled through the one she did not. Yes, Rising Tide was expanding. Yes, she was working on new programs. No, she and Tristan were friends. No comment on the investigation. She moved through the press line like water, smooth and steady. She posed for photographs. She smiled, not a forced smile, but a real one, the kind that comes from standing exactly where you are supposed to be. Inside the theater, they took their seats. The film was brilliant, tense, and layered, and Tristan was excellent in it. When the credits rolled and the audience stood for an ovation, Tasha stood with them, clapping, genuinely happy for this man who had pulled her out of the sand and asked for nothing in return. After the screening, there was a reception in the theater lobby. That was where Tasha was approached by a producer named Grace Ambrose, a woman in her 60s with silver hair and sharp eyes. "You are Tasha Patterson," Grace said. It was not a question. "I am. I have been following your story, not the tabloid version, the real one, the transformation, the brand, the legal fight. I produce a women's conference called the Pinnacle Summit. 2,000 attendees, speakers from every field. It happens in June. I want you to give the keynote." Tasha blinked. "The keynote?" "Yes. Not about fitness. About what it means to start over. About what it means to survive. Your story is the most powerful one I have heard in 30 years of producing this event, and I think it could change lives." Tasha looked at Grace Ambrose and felt the last piece of something slide into place. "Yes," she said, "I will do it." That night, after the premiere, after the reception, after the car ride home, Tasha sat on her balcony in Marina del Rey, still in the green dress, gold heels kicked off beside her chair, and looked at the ocean. Somewhere across the city, in a motel room in Van Nuys where he had been staying since his assets were frozen, Brandon Patterson was watching the entertainment news on a small television. And on that television, his wife, the woman he had pushed into the Pacific Ocean, was walking a red carpet in an emerald gown, surrounded by cameras and lights, looking more alive than she ever had in the 7 years they had been married. He stared at the screen, and for the first time, he understood what he had thrown away. The divorce was finalized on a Monday in May. Judge Helen Ortiz, who had reviewed the full scope of the evidence, including the forensic financial report, the forged documents, the hidden accounts, and the navigation data from the yacht, ruled entirely in Tasha's favor. Tasha received the Pasadena house, unencumbered, the forged mortgage having been voided by the court. She received a cash judgment of $1.4 million, representing the full value of the hidden assets plus interest and damages. She received all personal property. Brandon was ordered to pay her legal fees. On the criminal side, the district attorney had formally charged Brandon with attempted murder in the first degree. The case was built on the yacht navigation data, the insurance timing, the financial fraud establishing motive, and Tasha's testimony. Brandon's bail was set at $2 million. He could not pay it. Pamela called Tasha after the ruling. "It is done," Pamela said. "Every dollar, the house, full damages. He is financially ruined, and the criminal case is proceeding." "Thank you, Pamela." "Do not thank me. You did this. I just handled the paperwork." Tasha sat in the living room of her Marina del Rey apartment and let the news settle into her body. Done. The marriage was over. Legally, officially, completely over. She was no longer Tasha Patterson, wife of Brandon. She was just Tasha. Tasha with a house she could sell or keep. Tasha with money in the bank that no one could touch. Tasha with a brand that was growing every day and a future she had built with her own 2 hands. She did not celebrate. Not yet. There was one more thing to do. The Pinnacle Summit was held on the first Saturday in June at the Los Angeles Convention Center. 2,000 women filled the main hall, seated in rows that stretched from the stage to the back wall. The stage was set with a single podium, a blue backdrop, and bright white lighting that made everything look clean and sharp. Tasha stood backstage in a deep maroon dress, simple and structured, with gold earrings and her natural curls framing her face. She held a single index card in her hand with 3 words written on it: "Tell the truth." Grace Ambrose introduced her. The introduction was brief: entrepreneur, fitness innovator, survivor. The audience applauded politely. They knew the name. Most of them knew fragments of the story. They did not know all of it. Tasha walked to the podium, placed the index card on the surface in front of her, and looked out at 2,000 faces. 8 months ago, she began, I was thrown into the ocean by the man I was married to. The room went silent. He did not do it because we had a fight. He did not do it because he was drunk or angry or out of control. He did it because he wanted my life insurance money. He did it because he had another woman and another life waiting for him, a life he had built with money he stole from our marriage. He did it calmly and deliberately on our 7th wedding anniversary, on a yacht I thought he had rented to celebrate our love. She paused. The silence in the room was absolute. I hit the water and I sank. My dress pulled me down. The cold took my breath. And for a few seconds, I let it happen. I let myself sink because I thought, maybe this is what I deserve. Maybe a woman who was stupid enough to trust a man like that deserves to drown. She looked down at the index card. Tell the truth. But then something in me said no. Something that I did not even know was there. Some part of me that was deeper than the betrayal and the fear and the cold water. It said, you are not done. And I started swimming. She told them about the swim, the hours in the dark water, the rocks that cut her hands, waking up on the beach, Tristan finding her, the hospital, the legal battle, the tiny studio apartment with nothing in it but a mattress and a pair of running shoes. She told them about the first run, lungs burning, ribs aching, 3 blocks before she had to stop. About the first video, filmed on a stack of books with a phone propped against a shoe. About the first time she looked in the mirror and saw someone she did not recognize, someone stronger and harder and more alive than the woman who had gotten on that yacht. I am not going to stand here and tell you that everything happens for a reason, she said, because I do not believe that. What happened to me was not a lesson. It was not a test from the universe. It was a crime. A man tried to kill me for money. There is no silver lining in that. She straightened her shoulders. But I will tell you this. What I did after, that was mine. Every mile I ran, every rep I pushed through, every morning I woke up in that empty apartment and chose to keep going. That was mine. Nobody gave it to me. Nobody rescued me from myself. I did the work. And I'm standing here today because I refuse to let the worst thing that ever happened to me be the last thing that ever happened to me. The audience was motionless. Some women were crying. Others sat with their hands pressed to their mouths. Tasha saw Zuri in the front row, tears streaming down her face, nodding. If you are sitting here today and you are in a situation that is breaking you, I need you to know something. You have the right to leave. You have the right to start over. You have the right to be angry and hurt and lost and still choose yourself. It will not be easy. It will be the hardest thing you have ever done, but you can do it. I know because I did it, and I am nobody special. I am just a woman who decided to swim. She stepped back from the podium. The room erupted. 2,000 women on their feet. The sound was enormous, not just applause, but something bigger, a collective exhale, a release, a recognition. Tasha stood on the stage in her maroon dress and let it wash over her. After the summit, the afternoon unfolded in a blur of handshakes and conversations and business cards. 3 organizations wanted her to speak at their events. A publishing house offered a book deal on the spot. Dominic fielded calls for 2 hours straight. But the most important conversation happened at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, in a quiet hallway behind the main stage. Tristan found her leaning against the wall, shoes off, eyes closed, exhausted and elated. That was the best speech I have ever heard, he said, and I have sat through a lot of speeches. She opened her eyes and smiled. I was terrified. You did not look terrified. You looked like someone telling the truth. They stood together in the hallway for a moment, quiet, comfortable. What happens now? He asked. Now I go home. I sleep. Tomorrow I wake up and I keep going. And Brandon? Brandon is sitting in a holding cell waiting for a trial he is going to lose. His assets are gone. His reputation is gone. Brielle left him months ago. The last I heard, he was trying to get his mother's old house in Bakersfield released from the asset freeze so he would have somewhere to live when he makes bail. If he makes bail. She said it without bitterness, without satisfaction, just facts. He had everything, she said. A wife who loved him, a home, a career, a life that most people would be grateful for, and he threw it all away because he wanted more. He wanted the money. He wanted Brielle. He wanted a life without me in it. And now he has exactly that, a life without me. I hope it is everything he dreamed of. Tristan looked at her for a long moment. And you? I have a business. I have a house I earned back. I have a best friend who would go to the ends of the earth for me. I have a body that carried me through the worst night of my life and came out the other side. I have a voice that 2,000 women just listened to. She paused. And I have a friend who found me on a beach and never asked for anything in return. He nodded slowly. That is a good life. It is my life, she said. And nobody is ever going to take it from me again. She put her shoes back on. She straightened her dress. She walked back out into the convention center where the lights were bright and the air was full of the sound of women talking and laughing and planning their next moves. Tasha walked through the crowd, and people reached out to shake her hand, to hug her, to say thank you, and you made me feel brave. She received every one of them with grace. Not because she was performing, because she remembered what it felt like to be drowning, and if her story could be a rope for someone else, she would throw it every single time. She drove home alone that evening. The sun was setting over the Pacific, the sky streaked with pale blue and soft pink. She parked her blue sedan in the garage, climbed the stairs to her apartment, and stepped out onto the balcony. The ocean was calm. The water stretched out to the horizon, silver and blue, and the last light of the day played across its surface. Tasha leaned against the railing and breathed. 8 months ago, this ocean had tried to swallow her. A man she trusted had thrown her into the dark and walked away. She had been left with nothing. No name, no money, no home, no hope. Now she had all of it. Every piece rebuilt, every corner filled with something that belonged to her. She was not the woman who fell. She was the woman who rose. And she was just getting started.